The last days of the year in Xuchang City, Henan Province. In the final days of the year in Xuchang City, Henan Province, the weather is always freezing, with temperatures sometimes dropping below zero. Snow blankets the entire area, making the outside world appear silent and cold. However, the chill does not dampen the excitement and busyness of people preparing to welcome the new year. Yet, the winter of 2011 in Dunli Village, Xuchang City, Henan Province, felt entirely different. Instead of the usual festive hustle and bustle, the atmosphere was gloomy and somewhat eerie. This was due to a shocking event that occurred on December 31st, 2011, when villagers discovered something strange at the home of Chen Yuqin, a woman living in the village. Chen Yuqin, 36 years old, was divorced and lived with her children. She was sociable and well-liked by her neighbors, often inviting them over and even treating them to meals she cooked herself. On that day, two of her neighbors arrived at her house as previously arranged, around 8 a.m. However, they found her house still closed. Assuming she was still asleep, they knocked on the door and called her name but received no response. After several unsuccessful attempts, they decided to leave, thinking she had left early for some urgent matter without informing them. Around noon, one of the neighbors, Wang Hong, returned to Chen Yuqin's house intending to borrow some cooking utensils. However, the house remained locked and dark inside. Sensing something was wrong, she called Chen Yuqin's phone. The ringing could be heard from inside the house, but no one answered. Feeling increasingly uneasy, Wang Hong turned on her phone's flashlight and peeked through a gap in the door. In the dim light, she saw Chen Yuqin lying motionless on the floor, surrounded by a pool of what appeared to be blood. Thinking she might be seeing things, she rubbed her eyes and looked again, confirming the horrifying reality. Terrified, Wang Hong ran outside and screamed, drawing the attention of neighbors. After hearing her account, the villagers rushed to Chen Yuqin's house. Peering through the same gap, they too witnessed the grim scene. The villagers immediately called the Xuchang City police. However, the police station was far away, and heavy snowfall slowed the investigation team's arrival. By the time they reached the scene, a crowd had already gathered outside the house. Though some suggested breaking in, Wang Hong insisted on preserving the crime scene as instructed by the police. About 20 minutes later, a 5-person investigation team arrived. After dispersing the crowd and assessing the situation, they decided to break the lock and enter. As soon as the door opened, an overwhelming stench filled the air, sending chills down everyone's spine. Inside the living room, the police discovered 2 lifeless bodies, a man and a woman, covered in blood. The 2 victims lay close to each other, with their heads facing outward. Blood had spread across the floor in multiple directions. Notably, 2 blankets had been placed near the door, seemingly to prevent the blood from seeping outside. Chen Yuqin's home was in poor condition, with a small front yard surrounded by shrubs. The main door was an old, rusted stainless steel gate. A small side window was tightly locked from the inside. Chen Yuqin, the 36-year-old woman, lay motionless in the middle of the living room. Her body bore evidence of a brutal attack. The police counted a total of 22 wounds, with the fatal one being a stab to her left chest, piercing directly into her heart. There were also 2 deep cuts on her neck, along with multiple slashes on her head, right chest, abdomen, and hands. She was wearing a nude-colored spaghetti strap nightgown without underwear, and the fabric was almost entirely soaked in blood. A particularly disturbing detail caught the investigators' attention. Her private area had suffered severe injuries. Several crisscrossing cuts had been made with a sharp weapon. Upon further examination, traces of semen were found. This led the police to 2 possible conclusions. Either she had engaged in sexual activity shortly before being murdered, or the perpetrator had assaulted her during or after the killing. Not far from Chen Yuqin, the body of a man lay on the floor. His identity was not immediately known, but his physical features suggested he was between 40 and 45 years old. He was wearing a white tank top and shorts, clothing typically worn at home or while sleeping. His face was covered with a pair of women's underwear, believed to belong to Chen Yuqin. The police found bloody fingerprints on the underwear. The man had sustained a total of 17 wounds, mostly concentrated on his chest and abdomen. One particularly deep stab wound to his left chest overlapped another, creating a gaping hole, suggesting that the attacker had used significant force. Disturbingly, his genital area had been severely injured, to the extent that his penis was fractured. His left wrist had a pale band of skin, about 2 centimeters wide, indicating that he had regularly worn a bracelet or watch for a long time. The police considered 2 possibilities. Either he had a habit of removing his jewelry before sleeping, or the perpetrator had taken the item after the crime. The crime scene in the living room held several noteworthy details. On the floor, there were 2 distinct drag marks, one leading from the corner of the room to where Chen Yuqin's body lay, and the other from the sofa to the location of the male victim. Blood spatters covered the wall near the corner, suggesting that Yuqin may have been attacked there before being dragged closer to the main door. The sofa near the window was stained with blood, and a thin trail of blood dripped from the sofa to the male victim's final resting place, confirming that he had been killed on the sofa before being moved. As the police continued their search, they discovered 2 bedrooms inside the house. One was unoccupied, but the other contained the body of Chen Xiaohui, Yuqin's 10-year-old daughter. The young girl lay right in front of the bedroom door, her head facing the bed. The police identified 2 fatal wounds in her abdomen. She was dressed in long-sleeved pajamas, her hair spread out, creating a heartbreaking image that no one could forget. Xiaohui's bedroom was in disarray. 2 pairs of slippers lay in one corner. The wardrobe doors were wide open. The study desk drawers had been pulled out, and the entire room appeared to have been ransacked. The other bedroom, believed to belong to Chen Yuqin, was in a similar state. Next to the bed was a small dressing table, and in the corner, the wardrobe had been rummaged through, with belongings scattered across the floor. Notably, there were no male clothing items, except for a pair of trousers, a belt, and a dress shirt, believed to belong to the male victim. From the collected evidence, the police made an initial assessment. The male victim was not a member of the household, but likely a guest, or more precisely, Yuqin's lover. The state of the crime scene suggested that this relationship might have been a key factor leading to the horrific tragedy. When checking the bathroom, the police found another victim, a young boy, only 7 years old, named Chen Wangbei. He was the youngest son of the house owner, Chen Yuqin. The child had suffered 2 fatal wounds, one deep cut across his neck and another piercing his chest. The most horrifying detail was that his body had been placed inside a 200-liter water bucket. The prolonged submersion had made his wounds difficult to identify. His lips had turned purple, and his face and limbs were pale, embodying the chilling presence of death. Upon further investigation, the police confirmed that there were 4 victims in total, including Wang Bei. All had been attacked with a sharp weapon. The 2 young victims, Wang Bei and his sister, had fewer wounds, whereas the 2 adult victims had been brutally assaulted with extreme violence. The house was in complete disarray. Furniture was overturned, belongings were scattered everywhere, and no semblance of order remained. Most notably, the murder weapon was missing, indicating that the killer had deliberately taken it away to eliminate evidence. The forensic team quickly provided a preliminary conclusion. All 4 victims had died within a short time frame, between midnight and 2 a.m. on October 31st. The method of execution showed extreme cruelty and cold-bloodedness, as if the perpetrator carried an intense grudge. The initial motive was suspected to be personal revenge. However, the ransacked house and missing valuables led police to consider another possibility, that the murderer had also stolen items to disguise the true reason for the killings. A case that shocked the entire region. News of the family's brutal deaths spread rapidly, not only throughout the small village but far beyond. Villagers began speculating wildly. Some believed the crime was financially motivated, while others suspected it stemmed from Yuqin's complex personal relationships. Information from neighbors helped police understand the family's circumstances. Chen Yuqin, a 35-year-old woman, had been divorced for 6 years and was raising her 3 children alone. 2 of them, Xiaohui and Wang Bei, had tragically fallen victim to the crime. The eldest daughter, Chun Meili, 14 years old, was the only one who survived, as she was studying at a boarding school in Xuchang. Meili revealed crucial details to the police. She mentioned that a man frequently visited their home, Feng Xianwei, 40 years old, whom her mother introduced as a distant cousin. However, Meili knew the truth. He was not a relative but her mother's lover. This man often stayed overnight, but Yuqin kept the relationship a secret to avoid gossip. One particularly strange detail stood out. Recently, Yuqin had begun contacting her ex-husband, Zhang Zhifeng, with whom she had not spoken for years. However, these conversations were not friendly. They mostly ended in heated arguments. A week before the murder, following a particularly intense fight, her mother smashed her phone in anger. These revelations shifted the police investigation. Given the suspicious nature of Yuqin's interactions with her ex-husband, Zhang Zhifeng, the investigation team decided to track him down to uncover more details. When the police arrived at Zhang Zhifeng's house, he appeared visibly nervous. His home was about an hour and a half away by motorbike from Chen Yuqin's residence. The officers began their interrogation with a simple question. What were you doing on the night of October 30th and the early morning of October 31st? Although the question seemed harmless, it caused Zhang to tremble even more, and his words became hesitant and incoherent. After a long pause, he claimed that he had attended a party at a friend's house that night. Because he drank too much, he decided to stay overnight and only returned home the next morning. However, the police were not convinced and immediately went to verify his alibi with the friend he mentioned. To their surprise, the friend completely denied Zhang's account, stating that Zhang Zhifeng had never been at his house that night. This contradiction further raised suspicions that Zhang was hiding something. When the police returned to confront him, Zhang realized he could no longer lie. Finally, he decided to confess. He admitted that he had been in frequent contact with his ex-wife recently due to a dispute over the custody of their youngest son, Chun Wangbei. His current wife was unable to bear children, and because of that, Zhang wanted to bring Wangbei to live with him. However, Chen Yuqin strongly opposed the idea, leading to several heated arguments between them. On the night of October 30th, while passing through Dunli Village, Zhang stopped by Chen Yuqin's house to talk. However, the discussion quickly turned into a fierce argument. Yuqin berated him, calling him a heartless and irresponsible father. Enraged, Zhang slapped her across the face. Yuqin burst into tears, ran inside the house, and brought out a man. Zhang did not know who this man was, but he suspected it was Yuqin's lover. The police suspected that the man Zhang referred to was Feng Xianwei, the person believed to be Yuqin's romantic partner. They showed Zhang a photo of Feng, and he immediately confirmed that the man he saw that night was indeed Feng Xianwei. Zhang continued his account, saying that after failing to reach an agreement, he left Yuqin's house around 10:30 p.m. He arrived home at midnight, which his wife confirmed, as she had been awake to open the door for him. However, what caught the police's attention was that Zhang left the house again 15 minutes later, claiming he had urgent business to attend to. His wife said he returned at 1 a.m. The police pressed him, "Where were you between 12:15 a.m. and 1:30 a.m.?" Despite their suspicions, The investigators determined that Zhang's house was too far from Yuqin's residence for him to have traveled back and forth, committed the crime, and returned within that short time frame. The victim's estimated time of death was between midnight and 2 a.m., making it unlikely that Zhang was the perpetrator. Zhang explained that on that night, there had been a mechanical failure at the factory where he worked. As a mechanical engineer, he had to be present to help fix the issue. The gathered evidence ultimately ruled Zhang Zhifeng out as a suspect. Despite being cleared, Zhang provided the police with a crucial lead. He mentioned that when he left Yuqin's house that night, he noticed a strange man standing outside. The man had been there when Zhang arrived and was still there when he left. Curious, Zhang deliberately shone his motorcycle's headlight toward the man to get a clearer look. Initially, Zhang assumed the man was another one of Yuqin's lovers, but upon closer inspection, he found that something didn't add up. The man was balding, older-looking, and unkempt, completely different from the type of men Yuqin was usually interested in. Zhang recalled the details carefully and provided a specific description to the police. The man was overweight, with a slightly sagging face, approximately 1.6 meters tall, and appeared to be around 40 to 45 years old. After hearing Zhang's description, the police immediately realized that identifying this man could be the key to solving the case. The investigation team quickly worked with Zhang to create a composite sketch of the suspect. As the sketch neared completion, a crucial piece of information surfaced from Yuqin's eldest daughter, Chen Meili. Meili revealed that her mother had once known a man who matched the description perfectly. His name was Lu Yunkai, a 42-year-old man from Henan Province. Yuqin had introduced him to her children as a colleague. However, the police suspected that Lu was more than just a co-worker. He was likely another one of Yuqin's lovers. Based on this theory, they speculated that Lu Yunan may have been driven by jealousy after discovering Yuqin's relationship with Feng Xianwei, leading him to murder both of them. This theory also explained why Yuqin and Feng's wounds were deep and overlapping, indicating an act of intense vengeance. Further evidence from neighbors strengthened the police's suspicions. One witness reported that a physical altercation had occurred outside Yuqin's house a few days before the murders. Feng Xianwei had been seen fighting with a man resembling Lu Yunkai. Immediately, the police checked surveillance footage from bus stations across Xuchang City. Their search yielded a breakthrough. Lu Yunkai had been caught on camera at a long-distance bus terminal, leaving the city shortly after the crime. His hurried departure only deepened suspicions that he was the murderer. 3 days later, after tracking him across multiple locations, police arrested Lu Yunkai in Xuchang City, Henan Province. At first, he vehemently denied any involvement. However, after hours of intense interrogation, he finally broke down and confessed to the brutal crime. Lu Yunkai had a difficult past. Born into poverty, he had to drop out of school after completing only elementary education. He later worked as a farmer to help support his family. However, the constant struggle with financial hardship drove him to leave his hometown in search of better opportunities in the city. Lacking qualifications and skills, he was unable to find stable employment. As the high cost of living in the city weighed on him, he turned to crime. From 2006 to 2008, he was imprisoned twice for theft. In 2011, after serving his sentence, Kai was introduced by a friend to Chen Yuqin, a single mother raising 3 children. From their very first meeting, he was captivated by her gentle demeanor and appearance. However, his insecurities about their age gap and his criminal past made him hesitant to pursue a relationship. Unlike Kai's hesitation, Chen Yuqin actively reached out to him, frequently texting and calling. She assured him that she did not care about his appearance or past. All that mattered was whether he could take care of her and her children. Her words were like a warm light piercing through Kai's deep-seated feelings of inferiority. He promised that he would treat her children as his own and do everything he could to provide for the family. With that determination, Kai moved to Xuchang and even bought Yuqin a modest yet comfortable house. While living together, Yuqin became pregnant, filling Kai with happiness. The thought of becoming a father gave him the motivation to work tirelessly, hoping to provide a stable life for Yuqin, her 3 children, and their unborn baby. However, he never expected that Yuqin would secretly get an abortion. When he found out, Kai rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. Despite his deep pain and anger, he was too afraid of losing Yuqin to blame her. Instead, he blamed himself, believing that his failure to earn enough money had made her anxious about their child's future. His love for Yuqin drove him to work even harder. After some time, he sold the house in Xuchang and moved with Yuqin to Heilongjiang, hoping to start fresh. Her 3 children remained in Xuchang, staying in boarding school under the care of her cousin, Feng Xianwei. Kai dedicated himself to earning money, renting land for farming, and working at construction sites to support the family. He took care of everything, ensuring that Yuqin did not have to lift a finger. His younger sister warned him that he might be getting used, but Kai was convinced that their love was real. He even said, "Even if I'm being deceived, I'd still accept it if it means I can help the children." A turning point came when Yuqin received a call from her eldest daughter's teacher, informing her that Chun Meili had gotten into trouble at school and needed closer supervision. Seeing how distressed Yuqin was, Kai decided to bring all 3 children to live with them, so she could be with them. To do this, he borrowed 4,000 yuan from his sister and took Yuqin back to Xuchang. There, to thank Feng Xianwei for looking after the children, Kai invited him out for dinner. However, during the meal, Kai noticed suspiciously intimate gestures between Feng and Yuqin, a pat on the shoulder, a stroke of her hair, and subtle yet meaningful glances. When Yuqin went to the restroom, Feng followed soon after. Though suspicious, Kai chose to believe Yuqin when she insisted that Feng was just a cousin and there was nothing between them. The next day, Kai, Yuqin, and the children boarded a train back to Heilongjiang. He worked hard to ensure the children could continue their education. But everything changed one evening when Yuqin received a phone call from Feng Xianwei. Sitting nearby, Kai could hear Feng crying on the other end, though he could not make out the conversation. After the call, Yuqin silently wept. The next morning, she confessed to Kai that she was in a relationship with Feng and wanted to break up. Kai was devastated but did not lash out. Instead, Yuqin made a request. She asked him to continue caring for her children while she returned to Xuchang to live with Feng. If she later decided to be with Kai, she would come back. If not, she promised to cover the children's education expenses herself. Because he loved Yuqin too much, Kai agreed, but soon after, he discovered that Yuqin had moved in with Feng and taken the children without telling him. To Kai, this was the ultimate betrayal, a complete severance of their relationship. 1 month later, Yuqin suddenly called Kai, speaking sweetly as if nothing had happened. She asked him to send money to pay for the children's tuition and rent. When questioned, she claimed they had never broken up and insisted that the children weren't adjusting well to life in Heilongjiang. She even said that if Kai came back to Xuchang, they could all live together again. Clinging to hope, Kai brought 30,000 yuan and moved into the rented apartment Yuqin had secured. To support the children's education and living expenses, he invested all his savings into growing mushrooms. However, while Kai worked tirelessly, Yuqin spent her days gambling. The situation escalated into a major argument, and tensions between them worsened. A few days later, Feng Xianwei, along with 3 other men, stormed into the apartment and forced Kai to leave. Yuqin declared that Kai was nothing more than a hired hand for growing mushrooms and had no personal ties to her. Though enraged, Kai controlled himself and left. But when he later returned to the apartment, he found Yuqin and Feng having dinner together. To provoke Kai, Feng mockingly told Yuqin to call him husband in front of him. In a fit of rage, Kai grabbed a knife from the kitchen and chased Feng, who ran away in fear. Kai demanded that Yuqin either return to Heilongjiang with the children or pay him back the 60,000 yuan he had spent on the family. Afraid of losing money, she temporarily pretended to reconcile. But a week later, Kai discovered that she and Feng had checked into a motel together. When confronted, she called 6 or 7 men to drag him out of the apartment. In utter despair, Kai asked her, "How do you expect me to live now? I can't return home, and you've thrown me out here." Yuqin coldly replied, "If you leave and never come back, everything will be fine." Her words crushed Kai's soul. The love, sacrifices, and hard work he had given suddenly felt meaningless. Consumed by hatred, Kai decided to kill Yuqin in revenge. Kai purchased 2 knives and waited outside the apartment for the right moment. Around 1 a.m. on December 31st, 2011, he saw that the lights inside Yuqin's apartment were still on. He climbed over the fence and listened near the window. Inside, he heard Feng Xianwei laughing.
"It's almost New Year's. Call Lu Yunkai and see if we can get more money out of him."
That was the breaking point. Kai burst into the living room and killed both Yuqin and Feng. The commotion woke the children, who witnessed the gruesome scene. Initially, Kai considered sparing them, but fearing they would call for help, he silenced them as well. Before fleeing, he took valuables from the apartment, justifying it as taking back what was rightfully his. 3 days later, Lu Yunkai was arrested in Changchun, Jilin Province. At his trial on April 24, 2013, he was sentenced to death for premeditated murder. He did not appeal and broke down in tears, expressing regret. The execution was carried out on October 29, 2014. This tragedy is a powerful reminder of how unaddressed pain and anger can spiral into irreversible consequences. In the end, love, sacrifice, and trust were shattered by betrayal, leading a man down a path of destruction and loss. What are your thoughts on the perpetrator and the victim in today's case? Share your opinions in the comments below to join the discussion. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support our channel. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.